Horror Lies.
Guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. I'm your regular Wednesday evening host here at Body Bags. It is another random week. Why on earth I decided to run with The Fog from 2005, directed by one Rupert Wainwright, is it? Best known previously, Stigmata. Not sure if you're a fan of that one, 99, but known after The Fog, nothing. Probably a reason for that, actually. And I'm not one to be overly critical with reviews, but this had never been done on Body Bags. And I do have a little history with this, as Jason would say, right? I am going to take that from him, man. He is known for that. I love it when he's like, now my history with this, and he goes on to tell, and I love it. And I do appreciate his positive spin, I think it was, on The Fog from 05. Really do appreciate it. And probably why I went with this is next week is theme week, and next week is Glenn's. It really isn't that bad. That is going to be a fun week. I probably could have picked a better choice. I probably should have picked this one, actually, and ran with it. Instead, I already had a choice locked in, and I'm going to run with it, and it'll probably be, it'll probably not fit into that category near as well as some of the other reviews, but it may. Who knows? It may. Anyways, Rupert Wainwright. Yeah, The Fog. So as Jason would say, my history. My history is I saw this on the big screen, actually. I did not want to, but my daughter, my firstborn, my lovely firstborn, she really wanted to see it. Probably just to spend, probably just to spend time with me. And, you know, we had seen, a few horror movies together on the big screen. And the Evil Dead remake, funny, is one. Remakes. I don't know what is it about remakes, but so she really wanted to go, and I tried to talk her out of it. But we went, and so I probably walked out. It's been a while, right? It's 05 and it's 2024, so it's been a while. So I would imagine I walked out of there thinking this can't hold the water in the pail of the original John Carpenter film. Of course, yes, I got a way better copies of this, the Studio Canal 4K, but go a little retro here with The Fog on VHS, right? Just got an adapter for upstairs, so we're running VHS again upstairs. When you can run from VHS all the way up to 4K, it's a good thing, man, right? But we are talking about The Fog from 05, or, Fangoria's low cover issue of the same, right? So we went, and probably the worst part about that experience actually was the little teeny boppers sitting a few rows down that just could not shut their mouths. That was a little aggravating. But I probably walked out of the theater thinking that was nowhere near as good as John Carpenter's. And when are remakes generally better or as good? Though we have some that do deliver the goods. This is not one of them. And, so what is the best way to really differentiate these two films? I didn't really mean to start off. This wasn't my original intention, but, why not do this? So if you look on the back of the VHS, this is what you have for John Carpenter's. And I think we can draw a lesson out of this, right? When we compare the two. You have this for John Carpenter's Fog. The sleepy seaside village of Antonio Bay is about to learn the true meaning of the word vengeance, for this seemingly perfect town masks a guilty secret, a past steeped in greed and murder. Exactly 100 years ago, the treasure ship Elizabeth Dane was horribly wrecked in a thick, eerie fog under mysterious circumstances. Remember that phrase, mysterious circumstances. Now shrouded in mist, long dead mariners have returned from their watery grave to exact a bloody revenge. Can this waking nightmare be stopped, or will the fog keep rolling in to kill and kill again? And if you jump to the 05, if you know the difference or see the difference here. Trapped within an eerie mist, the residents of Antonio Bay have become the unwitting victims of a horrifying vengeance. 100 years ago, a ship carrying lepers was purposely lured into the rocky coastline and sunk, drowning all aboard. Now they're back, long dead mariners who've waited a century for their revenge, seeking out the descendants of those responsible for their deaths. They lurk enshrouded within a supernatural fog of terror. Beware any and all who stand in their way. Review done. No, really, though. That really is, I think that says an awful lot about where the remake fails, and that is trying to give way too much, explain way too much. The whole preface in the beginning was showing us the events of the Elizabeth Dane and how that transaction goes horribly wrong, how they're set up for failure because the town wants the property and the gold, and how that exchange was going to go. And they lay it all out there for you. And quite frankly, it really did nothing for me. It could have been kept in the fog, pun intended. It could have been kept mysterious. The casting, well, let's just say the cinematography. The cinematographer couldn't hold Dean Cundy's camera if he wanted to. Now, I'll say this though, saying that, there are a few shots that are pretty slick in this movie. There are. When Elizabeth falls into the water, ends up discovering the lost diary, some of the beach scenes, although the CGI tends to really disrupt a lot of what is going on here, the lack of practicals, but the cast, right? The cast. So, when you're, and generally we don't do this on body bags, but it's just how it fell, man. You got your Nick Castle character, but this time as Tom Welling, Superman, or should I say Smallville fame. I know him probably better from Cheaper by the Dozen, actually. But of course, Tom Atkins, he's trying to fill those shoes. Maggie Grace, of course, is our Elizabeth Williams, who has a whole different history in this movie than our Jamie Lee Curtis did, who had the wonderful opportunity of sharing film time. Well, technically, I don't think they ever shared scene time, but her and her mom, Janet Leigh, both, of course, are in the film, which is great. Stevie, who really probably is the anchor character of the original Fog, her and Nick, Selma Blair plays her, and she's not the worst thing in the world. I think a lot of these characters, I think unfortunately, they suffer from two things. One, anytime you have a film where it's really the adults who they're playing versus the kids, whether it's My Bloody Valentine, the original, there's something about horror films when, the adults are the ones, the changeling, the adults are the ones dealing with, rarely does it work when it's kids. I don't know. For me personally, Stevie, well, Adrienne Barbeau, right? I mean, now Selma Blair, her part could have been written better, and she's really underutilized in this film big time. Adrian Howe, of course, is our Father Malone, who I think was the one character who was destroyed by the writing the most. Hal Holbrook, of course, plays him in the original, right? And yes, they both drink, but the difference is, I think Hal Holbrook's character as Father Malone, he's a long life. There's reasons why he needs to open up the bottle before he heads home for the night. This guy's just a wandering drunk because he's freaked out by the terror that's coming to the island and the fog and everything, and it just is not convincing at all, for me personally. Jonathan Young, of course, plays our famed Dan the Weatherman, who Charles Cyphers played in the original. That character is way better in the original. I'm not even going to try to say his name, but the dude plays Captain William Blake, man. Of course, there are two and two, I think, for the original, for the 05. Rob Bottin, of course, got up in the makeup for the original. I really like his character better in the original because I say there's no character, there's character, but there's just way too much laid out, I think, in the new movie. Macon. Of course, R. Nelson Brown here. John Houseman, of course, was Mr. Macon telling the story, which makes The Fog, the original, so much better, because all the prologue is just simply done by telling a story around a campfire. And I can appreciate their want to dig into that and showing it. I just don't really think it was that effective. And Cole Heppell is Andy Wayne. Of course, Ty Mitchell plays him in the original. And I really did like his character a lot better. Of course, I didn't realize he was young Gary in Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2. So, you know, the cast really suffers. In the 05, it really suffers from just not great writing, I think. I think there are... I think some of these, I think the kid who plays Spooner, that might be actually the worst additional character. It really serves no purpose at all in this movie. It kind of like the kid who in Lindsay's ghost house, just serves no purpose. There's something to be said about, and I know, you know, when Carpenter starts on his rants about, you know, this movie or that movie he's done, you know, and The Fog isn't, you know, on the top of the list of his achievements. It is very near and dear to my heart, because I saw the original on the drive-in, so throw a bunch of bias in there, I guess. And this movie has been one of my favorite John Carpenter films. And this dude went on a tear, man. I mean, he went on a tear of films, man. There's just something about the Carpenter effect. How they did The Fog. The Fog was a real character. It just loses a lot of that in this movie. Now, there are moments where it could have been, like how it's sort of utilized, CG or not, in the beach scene when it's when the Fog is coming after Andy. It was pretty cool. You know, but those work best in, dare I say, the TV spots, and ought to be just left to the TV spots. It's, you know, and I'm probably ragging on this film more than I should. It's you know, there are people out there who will wander into the 05 film, Maggie Grace and Tom Welling, who don't even know there is an original film by John Carpenter. And quite frankly, there's probably people out there who wander into this one first, and then maybe they discover the original and give it a try, and then quite frankly like this one better. It's just, you know, perhaps youth, and what we're used to, and as why I'm accustomed generally to those things that I grew up with. Now, occasionally remakes can do amazing things. I'm just off the top of my head, the Maniac remake, right? The Thing would be on the top of my list if I considered it a remake. I don't, so therefore it's not. But Cronenberg's The Fly, the 78 is a 78 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, just amazing film. The Blob remake is actually more fun than, of course, that still benefited from practicals, you know, in a time when something like The Blob, you know, that was just a lot of fun, that remake. And actually, in a weird, I almost kind of prefer the Blob remake in a way that, okay, I think the original Blob is way better, but if I'm just going to throw the Blob in, I'm more apt to throw in the remake to the Blob. If I'm going to throw in the Fog, I'm throwing in the 80 Fog. I'm throwing in Carpenter's Fog. The Dean Cundy's cinematography in that movie is out of this world. The use of light alone is absolutely amazing. Now, you know, does it lack from story too? I mean, maybe there's an argument for that a little bit, but, you know, when you're, you know, 12 years old or whatever, watching the original for the first time at the drive-in is where I saw it, the drive-in theater as a kid. It was part of my birthday party celebration. I played a double feature with The Legacy. It was awesome. You know, these movies make impacts. They leave their indelible marks and they stick with you. And then you see something like the 05 film come along. Now, there's something to be said about Jason's positive spin. And I am going to drop that link down below because you really need to hear his positive spin, because mine's probably going to come across as it's a piece of freaking junk. Can't hold anything to Carpenter's original. But there are good things to be said about it. The Andy characters, you know, I mean, he's a pretty decent character in this movie. what they set out to do in theory is well, ambitious is the wrong word. It's to be admired, I guess, in a way, but how it's all executed in the end, it just falls so flat. And the score to the original Fog, I mean Carpenter, come on, but there are things to like about the remake. I'm sure there are things. And that's why I'm going to drop Jason's link down there. If you've not seen his positive spin, his positive spin made me pull this off the shelf and give it a rewatch, which I had not. I don't think I'd watched it since I saw it in the theater. And so, there is always a place for a remake. And if people are, at least from my perspective, if people are wandering through the 05 not knowing there's an original and then fall into the original and fall in love with John Carpenter's film, well, it did its job, man. It meant, a millionfold, it did its job as far as I'm concerned. So my last little blurb about this, and this review probably went way too long, but is this. If you had a director like the guy who did We Are Still Here, who wrote a love letter to Lucio Fulci, if you had a guy like that who would have taken up this material and wrote a love letter to Fulci while honoring John Carpenter and, say, just had City of the Living Dead at the forefront of his mind and just gave it that aesthetic and sort of went like that and went hardcore horror instead of a PG-13 movie, I think the effect could have been completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. That's just my take, because if I were to ever, if I were a filmmaker and I wanted to remake something, well, I don't know if I'd want to touch something as classic as a John Carpenter film. But if the fog lends itself to opportunities to do things, if you're in love with Fulci and in the 70s and the older stuff, Nightmare Logic, there's just so much that can be done with this material. And it just wasn't seized upon. Now, where We Are Still Here is an incredible love letter to Fulci. It's such a brilliant little film. Unfortunately, with these remakes, they get way too much money, too much studio, and I don't know. I haven't actually listened to Rupert talk or rant on this film on what he really feels, and maybe he ran into problems too. Maybe he ran into, creative differences with others of the studio or whatever. There could maybe be plenty of arguments to be had as to why this film could have been better. But that's just my take for what it's worth. But I will not forget to drop Jason's link down to his positive spin. You really need to check that out. And if you've never seen the 05, don't take my word for it. Take Jason's word for it and give it a watch, man. And horror is horror anyways. We ought to be watching anything and everything we could possibly watch and to support what is the horror film industry, which, look out, man. You didn't hear here first, but I really do think we're on the precipice of a horror boom that we have not seen, dare I say, maybe since the 80s. I really think we're edging towards something pretty special. So I'll end there. Kudos to my Bulldogs taking down Tennessee last night. My Bills got prime time today. Well, I don't know, prime time. Well, it's a 4:30 slot. Taking on the 9-0 Chiefs. So I'm going to gear up for that later. And so as always, man, we'll end these things off with go Bills, and check out Jason's positive spin for the Fog 05. I think you'll really get a kick out of it. And if you've never seen it, definitely you ought to at least give it a chance. And if you've never seen John Carpenter's film, well, anyways, we'll end there.
This is not a dream. Not a dream. We might be useful to you.